begin. Hi everyone, my name is Beryl from the Data Umbrella team. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I am going to do a brief introduction, then I will introduce our speaker, and then at the end of the talk we'll have a question and answer session. This webinar will be recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel in the next 24 to 48 hours. Data Umbrella is a community for underrepresented persons in data science, and we are a nonprofit organization. So behind the success of these webinars, we have a team. So here with me, we have Sangam, who's a community manager as well. And then we have Reshma and Christina, who are not with us today, but also a part of the success of the Data Umbrella webinars and this webinar. We have a code of conduct and we are dedicated to providing a harassment-free experience for everyone. And we thank you for helping us make Data Umbrella a welcoming and friendly community for all. You can support us in various ways. So one of the ways you can support us is by following our code of conduct. That is to help make Data Umbrella a welcoming and collaborative space. Other ways you can contribute or support us is by sharing our events with other peers and folks who might be interested in what we do. You can also contribute to Data Umbrella's open source projects. This include video timestamps. We have our new website that is up. We also have like a Data Umbrella blog and data events board, which are fully open source. So in case you have any skills or are a beginner in open source and want to get your hands on some open source experience, please feel free to visit our GitHub page where all those projects are listed. You can also donate to a nonprofit. You can donate to us through two ways. One is Open Collective. So we are on Open Collective as Data Umbrella. We're also on Benevity, which is a company match platform where you can donate. For example, if you do not donate $100, your company matches the same amount. We also have our YouTube channel. So our YouTube channel hosts all the previous webinars we've had. So if you're a fan of Penpot, we also have a previous video on Figma and how you can use Figma in the data field. And you can go and take a look there. You can also subscribe to our channel to get updates whenever we post a new video. We have different playlists on our YouTube channel, such as career advice, how to get into open source, scikit-learn, data visualization, NumPy, and PyMC. We also have a monthly newsletter on Substack. Feel free to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. We release the newsletter once at the beginning of every month. So we are on all social media platforms. That is, we are on Twitter, now X, LinkedIn. Meetup is where you'll find the list to our upcoming webinars. YouTube is where you'll find videos to our previous webinars and important talks. We also have our newsletter and GitHub for anyone interested in the open source field. So for this particular webinar, if you want to use the live captioning feature, it is on top of your screen. So on the right of your screen, there's a button labeled CC. Please feel free to use that in case you need live captioning. So we have an online suggestion box, and if you feel like you have suggestions or feedback about this event or other event, suggestion for future event topics, technical issues you encountered in case of any, or any other general feedback that would be helpful or important to the Data Umbrella community, please feel free. The form will be available in our handout section, and also the slides are available on the handout section. For our upcoming events on February 13th, we have an open source event. So if you are an open source fanatic, we have an event on the history of open source, where we'll have a speaker talking about open source, how it came to be, and the future of open source, and folks who are interested in open source, how you can contribute and continue contributing to open source projects. You can sign up for the event on our Meetup page. So for today's talk, today we have a talk on a sneak peek at Penpot, and our speaker is Pablo. So a little bit about our speaker today. Pablo is the CEO of Penpot. He's an entrepreneur with 20 years of experience in software development. His expertise cover open source design and code collaboration and lean practices. So his major concern is how technology can have a net positive impact on society. You can find our speaker on LinkedIn or Twitter. Again, these slides will be shared in our handout section, so feel free to follow our speaker on the social media platform. So with that, I will now hand over the video and the mic to Pablo. Pablo, welcome.
Hello, Beryl. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone attending this webinar. I hope you'll have a nice time. And so the idea, when I was, I have the privilege to accept this invitation, I was thinking, what could be relevant for a community that's at the intersection between open source and data science? And I thought, okay, we are about to launch Penpot 2.0. And there are some cool stuff that any open source lover and any data scientist would actually like to know about all this. So I've prepared some slides, but then I'm going to do a hands-on demo on several of the new features that are coming with Penpot 2.0. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me just resume that in a second. If you see me, resume, so you can see my screen now. Before I start, again, thank you very much for having me. My background is in physics and computer science, and I started doing open source back in 1997. And I've never left that passion. And I would encourage everyone to basically, enjoy open source science and data as much as they can. For it's a very exciting professional career, but it's also one that can have a positive impact on society. So very happy to be here with a lot of kindred spirits. So this is, by the way, I'm using Penpot also for my presentation. It is one of those use cases that people might not think of it initially, but that's not what the talk is about. But I'm just happen to like Penpot also for that. So this is what we're going to cover today. I'm going to do a brief intro to Penpot. I'm aware that not everyone knows what Penpot is. We are then going to do a quick walkthrough through the new Penpot 2.0 features. Penpot 2.0 is to be released next month. So this is a very exciting sneak peek. I hope you enjoy it. By the way, if there are some errors or bugs or internal server errors or whatever glitches, just clap very hard. I would be disappointed if during this presentation there's absolutely zero issues with my staging server. This is still beta. And a bit of the reasons behind we did all those changes for Penpot 1.19 or 1.x. And then also, if you want to be involved in our community, some tips. But the major bit will be the walkthrough through Penpot 2.0 features, the main ones. Okay, so this is it. So what is Penpot? Penpot is a open source design platform for design and code collaboration. So there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, it's open source. We're using MPL 2.0, so Mozilla Public License 2.0. This is a web-based platform, so you get to deploy a server, and then you just pick your browser of choice and connect to a server, and that's an instance that you can play with. It's about collaboration, so definitely it's a multiplayer platform. You can have multiple users using the same instance. You can create teams, projects, files, whatever you want, and you can have real-time collaboration. So you can have, at any given point, many different users just working real-time with any design file and just looking at those mouse cursors all over the screen. I don't think that will happen today because it's just me, but it's important that you know that this, of course, supports real-time collaboration. But then we say design and code collaboration. And I think it's very important for people like you to understand that traditionally design tools have been conceived for designers only. And then considering other users such as developers, data scientists, even product managers as an afterthought. And that in itself is not a bad thing, but it causes friction at some point. It causes friction in the sense that a design tool meant only for designers means that many decisions are going to be targeting designers and might alienate other stakeholders, such as developers and technical people. And that causes friction. And causes friction in the sense that whatever you build or design using a design tool might not get a faithful representation once it's implemented. There is this lost in translation issue, this back and forth conversation that leads them to a lot of frustration. Penpot, being an open source tool with roots in data science and in code, has decided to approach this collaboration challenge differently. And this means that it's not just about the license, but also we borrowed the best practices from code standards so that we would build a design tool that was code ready, code first. That means that SVG and CSS are native formats for Penpot. So we are building on top of that. So open standards basically are native to Penpot. And we have also reworked the UI for a design tool so that developers and data scientists and technical people feel super welcome. So in a way, also Penpot wants to be as inclusive as possible for anyone these days using or building some design. Of course, this is it's very important for us that we think we need some fresh air in the design industry. We haven't seen for real-time collaboration, for design and prototyping, we haven't been enjoying. As I said, I started with open source in 1997. It has taken a long time for a project like this to be born. I personally don't know why. I was there back in 2002 when Blender launched their crowdfunding campaign to become free. And of course, I'm an Inkscape fan, I'm a Godot fan, a Blender fan and supporter, but there was nothing around product team tooling that would mix design and code. But here we are. For the last few years, we've been building Penpot, initially as an alpha, then as a beta, and last year we released 1.0. We announced that at FOSDEM in Brussels, and the same thing we are going to announce 2.0 in a couple of weeks also in Brussels at FOSDEM. So this is, just for you to understand why we think this is very, very important. And now we are going to discuss Penpot 2.0. So far, the screenshots were showing the actual production environment that you can enjoy. If you go to penpot.app and you create an account, you will be redirected to design.penpot.app. And you are not going to see what I'm going to share you today. This is a kind of exclusive sneak peek for the Data Umbrella community. And this is, I'm just managing expectations. This is about to be released, but it's not ready yet. But it's coming close. So I'm going to show you three major additions and changes that we made to Penpot 2.0, trusting and hoping that you will, even if you don't know Penpot, it will also serve as a nice walkthrough for Penpot in general. So like as an excuse, this should also be a kind of Penpot 101 tutorial. So these are the three things I'm going to share with you today: the UI redesign, the new component system, and the grid layout feature. Let's start with UI redesign. This is a Conway's law. People familiar with this law will already understand, how impactful the way an organization sees themselves impact whatever they produce, whatever product or output they come up with. And Penpot 1.x was not representing the organizations that we are today at Penpot. So we needed a different UI to represent the way we think today at Penpot. So we are honoring this law. Theory aside, this is an overview of some changes of the UI redesign. You can see some components here. We will look into them in a minute. But the objectives, the goals that we had were to reduce the cognitive load. For a design prototyping tool, this is a huge challenge because you want to allow any user to be very productive, you know, with many options and tools and contextual menus. And at the same time, you want to make the whole experience super smooth and to allow the user to be in the zone as much as possible, right? So reducing cognitive load is very important in general. And it means that things now are simpler and you don't have many different ways to achieve the same, just one goal. We have kind of made distinct tracks and paths to achieve every different goal that we have in mind. That is related to accessibility, of course, but we also improved accessibility in terms of the color palette, typography, spacing. So this is also very important. We still work on this. This is a major challenge for a design tool that is a very micro-interactive heavy and also very visual. But we really want to make Penpot the most accessible design tool that exists. So this is an ongoing work, but 2.0 already delivers a bit on that. And also, why not say that Penpot 2.0 UI is beautiful? It's we're very proud of this. We think open source deserves the best of the best in terms of aesthetics, UI, interaction, UX, and we made sure that anyone using Penpot 2.0 can be proud and show off in a way that what open source UI can look like. And so this is now considered to be bleeding edge UI. The quality is spectacular, and you're going to see that even if I had to make my screen super big in terms of the text and everything so that the webinar runs smooth. But I think you will have a taste of why we think it's really beautiful, and we are so happy to share all this with you. So I'm going to now go to demo time. This is going to be the shortest demo. As I progress through the webinar, we will move more from design to code. So bear with me, but I think this is relevant. This I'm going to show you the interface using a project that is the design system. So Penpot 2.0 has a new design system. This is the Penpot UI interface when you're working. This is like the workspace. Here we have layers, we can have assets. We'll look into that later. We have pages and we have elements and grouping and layers all here. And of course, the moment I select an item, I have the right pane for me to change properties how I want. I'm going to go into the UI right now. I'm just going to show you a bit of how the new design system looks like. Of course, this will be published. Excuse me. And some people might want to borrow from Penpot 2.0 design system and use all this for their own apps. That's totally fine. But yeah, here you can see some examples. All these are components, but we will discuss components in a minute. So screens here, and okay, well, and then some work in progress. This is still work that we have to do, but yeah, this is the idea. I want to show you in terms of the accessibility. There is a short code here. We have light and dark themes. I'm using a shortcut, so it's Control-Alt-Q. But of course, we have here in my account, if I go to settings, I can change the theme. By the way, I'm also super happy to share that we have many different languages supported by the community, translations, and 2.0 will come with 3 West African languages, Ibu, Yoruba, and Hausa. So also super cool contributions coming from West Africa. But then again, all over the world, we keep getting amazing contributions in different languages. I'm not going to change the language now. I just felt that was also relevant. So this is the dashboard. You can see I have projects here called teams. Really, these are my teams, and then within a team I can have drafts, libraries, projects, fonts that I can upload, all that. But I'm not going to go into detail. Like a purely one-on-one tutorial would probably cover that. So going back to this, I have, by the way, links here. Yeah. So beauty, etc., and mapping options. Yeah, we have like new iconography, colors, labels, everything. It's very, very interesting. So let's continue with the webinar. By the way, I hope you like it. I think it looks really, really cool. I'm not sure whether I prefer the light theme or the dark theme yet. I'm just testing the dark one because it's the new one, particularly for the dashboard area. So next is a new component system, and this will be very dear to anyone that loves to componentize, to make things, elements that are reusable across any design. So this is Plato, from the Greek philosopher, and some of you might know about his theory of ideas and the world of ideas, and the difference between an essential idea in a place and then the tangible representation of that. And that is exactly what we brought to the Components 2.0. We will have a main component that holds the truth of what that component is, and then scattered around your projects, your Penpot usage, copies of that component. But you will always be able to go back to the main component, change it, and see those changes applied to those copies. So before we had we thought we had a great idea with Penpot 1.0. We thought that people did not need to have a kind of a physical representation of the main component, of the element which you can derive many copies and then have that that main component treated specially. We thought that we could leave main components in these assets, like in a special place, but we were wrong. People do enjoy having a physical space. When I say physical, I mean in a digital environment, it sounds silly, but you understand what I mean. A place where I can find my main components, regardless of the fact that I can also look for it using kind of a collection of elements. So we were wrong, and we changed that. And so now with user feedback, user interviews, and some competitive analysis, we changed that metaphor to a more simple one. So now, with this new approach that I'm going to demo in a minute, we have a better control over instances, inheritance, and overrides. We can better update workflows because we see instant synchronization. Whenever you change the main component, you can see real time how that affects any copies present there for you. And also we added new capabilities such as component swapping and annotation. I think now it's demo time. So let me see, I have this one. I'm going to use this one. So bear with me because now I'm going to do hands-on demo, and this could I could break things, but I think it's going to be fine. So just to be sure, when I say component, just think of perhaps if you look at object orientation programming paradigm, this would be the like an entity that you can instantiate, the class that you can instantiate. And that means that you can focus first on building your class system or your component system, and then make copies of those elsewhere in as much as you want. and knowing that if you need to make one change to all those instances, you only have to go back to the main component and make those changes there, and they apply. But there are other workflows that are also very, very interesting that might not seem obvious at first glance. So this is so I'm going to start super simple. This is an SVG of a dancer. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this element a component. Right now, it's not a component. It's just a path. Okay. So I just create component. I can do Control K or create component. So I create component. Okay. And then I have a component that contains a path. So if I now duplicate this, like this, I just pressed Control D. You can do that also with a mouse here. I can see that I have different copies. You can notice there is a change in the icon. The one with a nucleus, that's the main component. I know that also because it's set here to the right. This is a main component. And this one is a copy because it's kind of shallow or empty. And also because it tells you this is a copy. Okay. So this is like the trivial example where you go to the main component and I don't know, you just change the color. And the moment you're changing the color, all of this changes automatically. Okay. Control Z, and okay, I'll just override and just say like this. Not only that, of course, I can change the size and everything changes, all that stuff, right? I mean, this is a very simple object here, a dancer, but you can do this with anything that you decide to be a component. More stuff. Let's I'm going to delete this. I'm going to duplicate this one. So I have two components now, but I'm going to detach this one. Detach means that this is now a free, actually, let's not get to, I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to just create an, I'm going to delete all this. So I have, this is like how I started with just a path. So let's show a different thing. So I have this one and this one. I'm going to flip this one horizontally. And this one I'm going to create a component. So again, Control K. And this one I'm going to also create a component. I have two components. This one I'm going to call dancer left. And this I'm going to call dancer right. So now I'm going to duplicate this one. It doesn't matter really which one, which is now a copy of dancer right. Going to let me just move this around here. I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to create a component of this copy. Okay. So I can do that. I create a component, and now the component has a dancer right, but I'm going to call this one dancer main. I'm going to make an even higher abstraction. And I'm going to duplicate this one. So now I'm duplicating a main component that owns a copy of a component. Okay, are you following me? But this is, I mean, for data scientists, this should be like super easy to, perhaps not for the people, but for you, this is easy. So I'm just doing this. So I have main component with dancer rights and then copies of that one that use dancer rights. And what I want to do now is show you component swapping. So this is very cool. If I pick the copy of dancer right that belongs to dancer main, I can go to component and select any other component. Like I could go and also pick dancer left. And when I do that, since the other copies are following orders from these main components, they also apply the component swapping. So I've shown you two things here. very fast component swapping. So I can decide that one component should be changed with another component. Actually, we'll be showing more of that later. But also the immediate effect on the ripple effect that it has wherever you are using a copy of the main component. The component swap is also goes through those changes. Okay. Next, I would like to show you perhaps a more visual example of that component swapping. So here I have a work on a UI. So this would be a typical mobile UI. And I like this one. I like it. But I would like to change this component, which is content description. You see is a copy. I would like to change that to this other component, which is the favorite one. So you now know how I will do this. I will select the component. I will go to the this bit here and just decide which other component should get the slots. So I'm going to pick favorites. Okay, so I have favorites here, as easy as that. This is a very fast way of building UIs, complex UI or simple UIs that you perhaps initially develop your own screens and designs, whether they are high-res or not high-res UI, then decide on which elements merits deserve to be a component. You put them aside, you create components out of them, and you rebuild your UI using that. And then it's very easy to scale up your designs when you're doing that. Of course, there are people out there that are able to build a design system full of components right from scratch without even designing anything as a final output. So to get inspired, they have everything in their head, and they can do the component system, design system, even before designing any real stuff. But it's depends on you really what you want to, how you work. So yeah, I think that is interesting. And then this, I don't know if you can see this properly, but yeah, this is like a design system here, where you have a place where you would have put all your components, and then you change some stuff, and you know where to go and do major changes. Before I finish this bit and go into the grid layout feature, I want to show you a very simple usage of this, which is libraries. People get very excited about whatever design system they've built. They think it's kind of Lego pieces for a lot of people, and they want to make that Penpot file a library. So I'm going to do just that. I'm so happy about my my dancers here that I think this deserves to be a library. A library means that you encapsulate all this into a Penpot file, and other projects can use this Penpot file. So this is how you would do it. You would go to here, you would say add as a shared library, and you would say, yeah, this is a shared library. You now have this icon to remind you that this is a shared library. You can still work here, but this is potentially shared. So if I go here, you now see this has this library. I'm going to create a new file. So nothing here. And here under assets, I can go to libraries, and I have this available. Penpot is telling me, look, within your team and your project, there is this shared library. Perhaps you want to use it and reuse all those components also here, so you don't have to start from scratch. So I say, yeah, please, I want all that for free. So now I have this, and you can see that under layers, I don't have anything because I basically didn't start designing. But under assets, I have all the things that I was using. So this is super cool, because that means that let's just go for dancer main. Okay, so I will do this. Well, it doesn't matter. Really just one dancer here. But if I go back to the this one, okay, the library, and I go here and I change something here, like I could, yeah, definitely change the swap. So instead of to the right, this is now looking to the left, and perhaps, I don't know, I can just change the color, okay? If I go to the new file, I have this info pane. There are updates in shared libraries, more info, update. You can dismiss it and you can make those changes be applied later. But I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm fine, update. So I get all those two changes. This is really very interesting. I think as data scientists, you would probably be very keen to create like your library of components in one file, and then polish it as much as you want, and then continue to build stuff around that, knowing that whenever you are changing the original components in that library, changes propagate on demand, if you want, to any other project that is using that. We have some of them already here. And actually, if you go to, if I look at Penpot libraries and templates, you will find many of them that built by the community. Okay, all sort of very cool stuff. Okay, but if you want, you can contribute also. Perhaps there could be an umbrella library that makes sense. I don't know. That would be very exciting. Okay. So last bit. But before I go to showing you grid layout and a bit of the code that you can take from Penpot, we continue to build more features on top of the new component system. We know that we need variants. Variants are a way to encapsulate the Cartesian products that comes when you select many different components that are sharing some attributes and not sharing others, and how you can be very compact about the things that are shared, and so that you can play with it in a very neat way. So it is something that designers use a lot. So they can say, okay, I will pick 3 components here. Each one has this attribute that is shared, and I'm able to very neatly change the state of that attribute on all 3. And then design tokens, which is basically macros and variables. Everything should be a variable, really. Even on a design tool, everything you think should be a variable. A shape, a color, a list of colors, an image within a board, everything at some point you could think it as a variable. And if something is a variable, can be treated as a token, and should be able to apply to anything that where that variable makes sense. So for instance, you could say a color is a variable. That is a very trivial example. And then you can apply that variable to anything that can receive a color as an attribute. So it's another way to think about components, but in a more atomic way. And then libraries and components versioning. Why not have also why not track different versions of a component and perhaps go back to a snapshot that was working great? Of course, we have unlimited history and undo history for Penpot, but sometimes you just really want to go and pick a particular snapshot or a version of something that you loved. And finally, we have grid layout. I'm going to take a second to sip a bit of water. And here's where we're going to start saying much more code, because on purpose, I have put aside that throughout the UI redesign and the components. I could have showed you real code that comes with that, but I was waiting for this. So a bit of history in general in web, but web applies really to anything we're building now that is visual. we've been enjoying something called flex layout. And flex layout is a way to organize the alignment of items, okay? And we had that already before Penpot 2.0. So flex is about one-dimensional alignment. You go, from right to left, from left to right, or, top, bottom up. And it's a very smart way to automatically align elements. And it's very reactive and responsive to changing environments. So this came, I think, more than 12 years ago. So Flex has been used for many years now. Now, Grid is another open standard with for CSS that is only a few years old. It's basically from 2019. And Grid brings a two-dimensional approach where it's not the concern is not so much the alignment, but the location of the elements in a bidimensional grid. Okay, and people typically will tell you that it's not a matter of who's better, which one is better, Flex or Grid, but how you combine them. You could have a grid made up of grids and also flex elements. You could have a flex layout that uses a grid in one of the cells. You just combine them the way you want. So think them as tools that you can combine. Now, unfortunately, for design tools out there, they haven't been welcoming flex or grid. They have considered that belongs to the tech world, and designers are not allowed, should not be enjoying all that. The designers should be using their own vocabulary and abstractions and stay away from open standards from the tech world. At Penpot, we think that is super wrong because that causes friction and frustration. And actually, designers have they don't enjoy looking at what gets implemented and see that their true vision was respected. Typically, if you ask a designer to show their portfolio, they won't share you URLs on production. They'll share you screenshots or mockups because that is what they think it's their work, how their work shines. And I think and developers are always trying to interpret these abstractions, these visual abstractions from these designs, and making compromises. So it is very frustrating for both designers and developers. But Penpot uses the standards from code. So right away, when you're using the UI, you are already building valid code, and there's no translation. I'll show you that. So you can do all sort of compositions. I think it's unfortunate that we call grid layout grid, because it looks like you think it tends to make you think it's about a grid, but actually it's just two-dimensional, bidimensional. Just think in that way. Don't think that you have to build a grid. So demo time. So I'm going to go, this is the trickiest part of the demo because I'm going to design some stuff. So yeah, I'm going to go to my file here and let's start with the basics. Okay. So here I have a board, but before we look into that, a grid, you can build a grid as simple as you create a board and you go to layout and you decide between flex or grids. Again, you can nest layouts, but I'm going to say a grid. By default, we get a 2x2 grid. And you see that I have options here. I hope you can look at the hover text. So you see align item start or justify item stretch. All these come from CSS. Also the disposition. This is the row one or the column one. Alignment starts, etc. And if I edit the grid, if I enter edit mode, of course, I can expand this and I can add more columns. I can do that also from the UI directly here. So you can do whatever you want here. This, you see there are some units here. So what FR stands for, this is fractional unit. And this basically means one fractional unit of all fractional units. So this would mean 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You can use that, and it is recommended that you stay relative FR units are really super handy. But of course, you could decide differently and just go for a very fixed pixel width. And you can see this is here. And also, of course, I could change this here. And I could say 2 FRs, 2 here. And you can see how this changes. So, and this is an example of a grid. Now, how was I able to do that? Since you see this is kind of a grid, and here you see it's kind of broken. Well, because you can combine. There's no problem in combining, grids the way you want. So cells can belong to a particular area. So you can then be very free. And the more the finer the grain, the more complex the grid can be. Okay, this is relatively simple, of course, but because it still looks like kind of a rectangular grid. But you can imagine that depending on how you are setting images, this can change a lot. Okay. So this is the first time ever that a design tool has decided to bring the open standards from CSS right to the design arena. This is the first time ever. So, and we think this is going to be a game changer because it allows designers to be very creative, also front-end developers, data scientists, everyone to be very creative, knowing that they will get real code, and we'll see that now. Actually, I'm going to show you that. If I select the board and I go to inspect, you see all the information coming from Penpot, but also the code. Okay, but that's a spoiler. So that's a very simple grid, and of course, the good thing about grids is that they can be responsive depending on the setup that you have here, how this reacts, all the options you've selected. Super cool. Then we have this table. I think you will like to see tables because, as data scientists, probably you're used to, presenting data. So I'm going to do this for you. I have some info here. I'm just going to glance over that. So let me do this with you. So far, I'm just going to duplicate this, but instead of really like duplicating the stuff like this, I'm going to actually manually do it. Okay, so I think something like that. I think you should be here. So I create a board. Okay, so I have some guidelines there, like this. This has a height of 170 pixels. So that's what I'm going to do. So now I know it's the same. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a grid layout. So I'm going to add a grid. Okay. I'm going to edit the grid. I'm happy with 2 rows. Okay. But I need more columns, definitely. So I can add, let's do it like this, and like this. Yeah, something like this. So you can see it. Okay. I added one more. No, just that is okay. Because I'm seeing here, if I edit, I see we have this. Okay, so 9. Next, I'm going to make sure that I have this padding. So this padding, I just go to edit grids and I will add 20 pixels and 20 pixels for vertical padding and horizontal padding. I'm using shortcuts. Of course, I could make this individually, but this is not a shortcut because I want to be symmetrical. We know that this is different. This is not exactly a 1 FR. So I'm going to change this to 50 pixels, and I'm going to change that to 50 pixels. I know that's 50 pixels because I can come here and I can look at 50 and 50. Okay, I mean, I know this already. Then this here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a board, and I'm going to change the fill. I'm going to pick a color. I'm going to pick a different color, so I don't want to make exactly the same. So something like this. I don't know. What do you think? Okay, that. Now this is interesting. The fact that I have this option here, row, instead of column, means that I can select this board, duplicate, and I have for free like the orientation. So I'm going row that way. By the way, I'm also going to pick this text here, and I'm going to paste it. And actually what I'm going to do now is this one I'm going to duplicate. So again, and this one here, I copy this and that. Let me very quickly change this. Subtype, recipient, balance, and date. Yeah, status. And then, so that is fine. That is working great. Then why not just pick the this one? Sorry, this. I'm just shift selecting and copying this, and then here I'm just copy and pasting. Okay, I just did that, and Penpot, of course, understands what I'm trying to do. But this is not correctly aligned, so but I'll just do the let me see this. No, this is not. This is here and here. So that is the alignments, and voila. So you know, I have a different one. Perhaps you want to make this a component. Why not? You can create a component. Now you know how to do that. So and you can duplicate that, and now you have a component, and then you decide that actually some color is going to change. I don't know. I mean, you can play with this. You now know how to play with this. And finally, grid allows you to do quite some exciting stuff. Well, before I do that, let's go back to this, to inspect mode. And you saw all this, but if I go to code, of course I can do the SVG, so you can do that. But if I just go to standard CS and HTML and I select this one, whatever I want, I can select an element, a board, whatever I want. I just go to inspect, code. So I'm going to copy the CSS. I'm going to go to my pen here, and then I'm going to copy also HTML. I'm going to paste this. And in a minute, I'm going to see exactly a valid HTML that you can then tweak whatever you want. So this is the inspect from Chrome, and you're seeing display flex, things like that. Depending on where I do some stuff. So all this is working great. Display grid, align item center certain 20 pixels, 20, 20, 20, 50 pixels, 1FR. Everything there is exactly the same. This is wonderful. You don't need to interpret. You don't need to come here and say, okay, this is a nice design. Now how do I translate it into code? There's no translation. You just get the code. And you get also fonts, everything here. The CSS, this is wonderful. So, and then the dashboard. You can label areas, and you can create components out of grid layouts. This is actually we're using something, and you can perhaps think of something like the sidebar or the progress bar or everything as a component. You can just do this, and then perhaps here you can say, I wanted to go and be very flexible, so take the entire height, progress card, the player's sidebar, and here I think I'm going to say yeah, or here, and do that, and also decide that I want it to be like that. And again, I could go here, inspect, code, and take everything. I'm not going to do that. You know how it works. So very powerful. The new UI, the new component system, the grid layout on top of Flex layout. Amazing, amazing stuff. So back to this. I'm now almost finishing. I would like to thank the Canonical people, the makers of Ubuntu, a great Linux distribution, because they got access to a better version of grid layout and sent amazing feedback. And thanks to them and other people from the community, we were able to improve something that was already amazing. So we are really excited to share all of this with you. You will see all these micro interactions, the way things are labeled. All of that is just amazing. I mean, I was very fast during my demo, but I think you get an idea that you will get this into no time. And if you're a designer, or even if you're not a designer and you're just like a technical, and you're a data scientist or developer, you learn the CSS, the language, as you go. You don't need to code. You can just focus on what you want to build. And as you go, you will get familiar and fluent in CSS, the most modern CSS. So every hour you invest here is good investment for your professional career, definitely. So wrapping up, we looked at the UI redesign, super cool, open source, can be beautiful. And this is, I think, a good example of this. The new component system, the main component, the copies, and the way things are placed and how they impact each other. Of course, we didn't see all the workflows, but you can change a copy and decide that is has to change the main component. We didn't see, that is also a typical workflow. It's a copy that you want to change and then say, I really like this one. I'll make the main component inherit all this, and then have this ripple effect applied to other copies. Grid layout, I hope you got the basic idea of how powerful this is. And yeah, there's more stuff coming, performance improvements, all that. And remember that Penpot 2.0 is open source. You can use it using a browser, but you can connect to our official cloud service, penpot.app, or you can self-host your own instance. Even if you're a solo player and you want to have Penpot for your own in your laptop, that is fine. You don't need an internet connection. And so thank you very much. This is our community space, community.penpot.app. Super welcoming and inclusive. We have people all around the world suggesting ideas, feature requests, discussing the future of design and code. And you also have YouTube and PeerTube channels, and that's the web. So I hope you enjoyed this super crash course on Penpot 2.0 and what's coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pablo, for that presentation. It was good to see the demos, which made everything more clear than just going through the components as I walked through. So thank you so much. So we'll just go on to some question and answer. So if anyone in the audience has any question, feel free to leave it in the chat or in the question and answer tab. So the first question is from Russ, and they ask, what makes Penpot stand out from competitors such as Webflow?
I think Webflow is less about building and more connecting something that you are building towards automating and building. But it's not meant to be a productivity suite for real-time collaboration when you have designers, product managers, and developers all working on something that is not necessarily building a web, really. It's creating designs that can then be implemented. This is a much more creative platform, agnostic in terms of what you're trying to build. Like I said, I'm using Penpot for my slides. People use Penpot for doing brainstorming sessions. It's kind of a canvas for you to build, but gets things that Webflow is doing, connecting and kind of integrating the DevOps, the design ops into the DevOps as a native tool, welcoming both designers and developers. I think Webflow is a nice example of a tool that had to be built to acknowledging the status quo of design tools and trying to connect that to a Git repository and the building the tool chain for devs. You go to Webflow and they say they integrate themselves with Figma and Sketch, and they will probably integrate themselves also with Penpot at some point, because they understand that they serve a different, more DevOps workflow. Now, the fact that we have built-in code for Penpot might mean that for a lot of people, they don't need Webflow anymore. They just need to connect Penpot's API and access tokens and webhooks to their building process. And it is true that there is a bit of overlap, but I think Penpot has learned from tools like Webflow to bring some of those capacities to a design tool. But I think they're serving different use cases. Penpot is much more similar to tools like Figma or Sketch, and less to tools like Framer or Webflow.
Yeah, the next question is, can you talk a little bit more about Penpot using SVG?
Sure. SVG is native for us, so we are not. If you actually inspected the DOM on this web page, you would see that we are rendering on the canvas and we're using SVG. But yeah, so I could go to, let's say, something like this, and you can get the code, and you can get the SVG here. So this is the SVG. I can actually copy this, go here, and just delete the CSS and paste the SVG instead. No, I did something wrong. But anyway, now what I wanted to show you is the here. You can export using SVG and JSON. Everything that you design with Penpot, it's a native SVG. So you can copy and paste SVG from other tools and use it here. I haven't done that, but of course you can import images, SVGs, whatever you want. And Penpot treats them as first-class citizens. And the primary, let's just do a very simple example. So if I just download standard file like this, and just, I hope this works, because this is the staging server, and this is a big file. Let me see. Yeah, so I just download the Penpot file, okay? So if I go here, I hope you can see my screen. I go to downloads, and I have here this zip file. So if I extract, you see that we have a JSON that takes care of some tokens, but then you have the different, the SVGs. So here I'm using the different boards that exported as SVGs, and this is pure SVG. This is not a. So if you really want to rely on SVGs because you are drawing SVGs or you're using SVGs in your app or web, then Penpot not only can give it to you, but we will be very, very excited to give you that natively without any information loss. We're very fans of SVG.
The next question is, with the cool CSS integrated feature that you demonstrated in your demo, what are your thoughts on the need for web developers to learn CSS frameworks like Tailwind and Bootstrap?
Good question. I think developers could consider not learning frameworks like Tailwind and Bootstrap, particularly Tailwind. I think would be a much more opinionated if they build their own design tokens here, because then they can visually represent what they want, their intent, in a visual tool, and they just take like standard CSS. Okay. So I can see people deciding not to learn Tailwind and Bootstrap and create their own CSS, knowing that they are like pure CSS. I can see that. But also you could at some point consider that perhaps a future plugin, we will be building a plugin system very soon, that you would like to use Penpot and then export what you built into Tailwind CSS or into Bootstrap CSS. And that would be a translation. And like all translations, there are some issues, but I wouldn't consider that as to be a fundamentally wrong practice. If you really are familiar with that language and that opinionated way of building a web or an app, that would be fine. So that's a great question. I think many of those frameworks were built because a tool like Penpot didn't exist, and they needed to help developers to very quickly have a sort of design system in a way, and just use it as components. But if you have that with Penpot, if you build that one yourself, or you reuse one that exists, like here, for instance, I can go to my umbrella project and I can import material design. So I can do this. This is not Bootstrap, but it's a very popular UI kit, as you know. So I'm importing this. It takes a while because it's a very big design. Let me see how much it takes. Okay, so here you see all the components, samples. Well, actually assets here. You see all these components, right? All this. So you could also have this as your way to build your UI. So I don't know. It's not. I'm not like super pro or against. I use Tailwind CSS myself in my projects, but I have to admit that with Penpot 2.0, for my next project, I might not need to resort to that. We'll see. So, but yeah, great question. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, the next question is, are there any GPT integrations planned? I think I had seen some GPT integration with Figma long ago.
We not planned in terms of GPT. It is very important for us as an open source product that we remain open source. So, of course, we are working hard on open source AI, the AI that you can rely on, that you can trust with open source models and open source data, training data sets. So we are working on that. I'm assuming that some people will create plugins that integrate with GPT. That is fine. You want to use that. But we want to make sure that right away when you use Penpot, at some point you will be able to also use open source AI using diffusion models and LLMs that are open source. Now, I have to tell you that an interactive UI, even a very simple one, this one, I doesn't care. An interactive UI is very challenging for a tool like Figma or Penpot or anyone to use AI right away. Diffusion models are great at pictures, and LLMs are great with code and language. But a UI is both. You have the visual representation, but also the code, and this you have this dual nature. So any physicist in the room will see this as a close metaphor to a photon. A photon is both a particle and a wave, and you have to understand both behaviors to fully have a grasp on what a photon is. An interactive UI is kind of a photon in AI, and so it's going to take a while before we really get a visual design that is actually valid code, or a valid code that gives you a design that is interesting for you to work on. So the short answer is yes, it's planned, but it's also planned open source AI, and we are hoping to deliver some of that later this year. But it's very important that we own that technology, and it's comes from the community and goes back to the community.
Yeah, thank you. Two more questions. So the first one is Penpot a good option for beginner designers?
Yes. Yes. Actually, there are many YouTube tutorials that will give you like first steps into how to learn to design using Penpot. Penpot is a complex tool, but you don't need to start complex. You can there are many tutorials, basic stuff. You can actually do some beginner Figma tutorials or sketch tutorials, and instead of using those tools, use Penpot. So you can reuse material that is already there. But yes, a lot of people that are designers are starting to learn how to design with Penpot, with the added benefit that they already understand how all that is going to be implemented. Even if they are not developers themselves and don't need to then resort to code, they inspect code here. It gives them kind of an extra level for free. So I would definitely recommend Penpot. It's very usable and accessible for everyone. So yeah, so if, for instance, if you're a developer, I would like to learn how to design or be familiar with design, I think Penpot is the perfect tool. But even if you don't plan to code, also you can try Penpot.
Yeah, and my last question is, why did you choose to build Penpot the open source way?
Well, the team has always believed that we need to build the tools that make a better society, that make technology accessible to everyone, so we can all build whatever we need. And we were lacking a proper open source design and prototyping tool, and we considered that that was an issue because design was getting more important than ever for software development, and open source was still focusing on databases, graph networks, operating systems, libraries, frameworks. But everything was about code, and we were not addressing how to build user interfaces properly at scale in big organizations. And by not doing that, we were giving away a lot of agency and power to very few companies that would own critical IP. So yeah, we would be building behind the scenes a lot of cool stuff, network stacks and whatnot, but we would be in the hands of some companies that would decide to charge whatever they want, use proprietary formats, that the status quo we didn't like. So it is very challenging to build a tool like this, but we decided that we needed to have a powerful open source design prototyping tool so that we could also say out loud that open source covers the entire spectrum of software building. And here we are a few years later with something that is truly amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. So thank you so much, everyone, for the questions. We have some emojis going on. We also have a comment from Raski saying, agreed, Webflow is not strong on collaboration. Thank you, I'm sold. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for asking questions and making the talk collaborative. As I said earlier, this video will be up on our YouTube channel, and it will also be shared on, I think, Penpot's social media platforms as well. So if you want to go back and look at the video and maybe learn some few things, check out in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll also make an announcement when the video is up for viewing. Again, thank you so much, and thank you so much to our speaker for taking the time to present to us about Penpot and the new things to look out for the version 2.0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.